So menopause has been a hidden subject for so long. But every woman in this room will go through it. Every woman in the world will go through it if they live long enough. But in the past, as you can see from this slide up here, it hasn't been something that our great-grandmothers and our great-great-grandmothers before that went through because they were all dead. They didn't live, they weren't lucky enough to live long enough to go through the menopause. So it's really a 20th century phenomenon. In the 1960s, when there were enough women going through it, the menopause was known as a hormone disorder. HRT was developed, and it was a game changer. At first, they used horses' urine to develop their HRT, and this is an example of how that urine was collected. But after that, 3 decades of women enjoyed HRT. Newer products were developed that replaced this, and they were convenient tablets that could be taken. So things were going well until about 2002. And that's when the Women's Health Initiative trial was published, and everything changed. There was a link established between the use of HRT and breast cancer, stroke, and heart disease, and the trial was stopped early. It made newspaper headlines, and generations of women were taken off their HRT overnight. Doctors working today were trained during this era. We remember those headlines, and we remember the fear of prescribing HRT at the time. But the trouble is, the data was flawed. They were not scared for the right reasons. The trouble with that data was that the average age of the women included was 63. Only 3.5% of the women in that study were between the ages of 50 and 54. Most of the women in the study hadn't even been on HRT. A lot of them were overweight, and a lot of them had been smokers. So the trouble is, you can't use that data and apply it to today's perimenopausal women. Along with that problem was that because we thought that HRT wasn't something that we were going to be able to use, menopause didn't make it into training. So the number of hours of training that you receive in medical school on menopause is 0 hours. And if you decide to go into general practice or family medicine or gynecology, then you might think that you might be trained in menopause as part of your specialist training. But the trouble is that the doctors who are out there today, so the GPs and most of the gynecologists, also received 0 hours of training. So what happens when women seek help from these untrained doctors? Maybe they are, so a good doctor will refer you if they don't know how to manage what's in front of them. And they might refer you to an ophthalmologist, a neurologist, a dermatologist, a rheumatologist, a psychiatrist, a cardiologist. But the trouble is, the total number of hours of menopause training that those doctors have received is also 0 hours. So how are we as doctors expected to help these women when doctors have no training? Well, maybe the women know what's happening to these bodies. Maybe there's their own bodies. Maybe they have some sort of innate superpower that means that they understand just by osmosis what's happening. Maybe they just maybe they just know. But the trouble is, when we ask women, the percentage of women who have some sort of prior knowledge or awareness of how menopause will affect their bodies is about 5%. So we have a big problem. So this data is from the UK, but it's a worldwide problem. We speak to our colleagues from all over the world, and we understand that they have the same experiences. And so the outcome is that women are suffering. We know that 90% of women experience some sort of symptom, and that can range from anything from joint pains, itchy skin, mood changes, insomnia. Everybody's heard of hot flashes and night sweats, but what about lightning Fanny? So, and you might laugh, but and so few people have heard of it, and it is a deep, horrible pain, like a red-hot poker that's shoved up inside you that takes you. You could be in front of a room full of speakers, you could be behind the wheel of a car, and it's deeply disabling, and it impacts sexual function, and that's a big problem. But as well, so you've got 90% of women who experience some sort of symptom, but 20% of women, so 20% of the women in this room, if they live long enough to reach the menopause, will experience debilitating symptoms. And I had a patient who came to me who said, well, I had a choice today. I could either have driven my car off a bridge or I come and see you. And she chose to come and see me. And this is the problem. So jobs, friendships, relationships, and lives are all affected. And having said what I've just said, probably this statistic won't surprise you, but the highest suicide rate amongst women is between the ages of 45 to 54. And the fact that that coincides with the perimenopause and menopause is probably not that surprising. So menopause impacts more than women's bodies. It impacts relationships, there's anger and rage and irritability, and that leads to divorce. And another symptom is feeling invisible, like a disconnect or like the lights have gone out. There's brain fog, memory symptoms, loss of confidence, and this all impacts careers. 660 million women are on their way into the menopause. And 50% of these women are in the workplace, but they don't stay in the workplace, and that's another problem. So in the UK, nearly 1 million women have left or lost their jobs due to menopause. And I think that's a horrific statistic. There's lost talent, there's lost careers, lost identities, and lost livelihoods. But women are starting to talk because that's what women are good at. They are sharing and they're shouting, and a revolution is happening. So this is an example of a group of women in the UK called the Menopause Mandate who frequently go to our parliament and stand outside and make a lot of noise, and it works. Menopause also doesn't happen to your characteristic old lady. The average age for periods to stop is 51, but symptoms can start in the 40s or even younger. But a revolution is coming. They are shifting taboos and lifting shame. So lots of celebrities are using their platforms to shout about menopause. We've got Oprah Winfrey, we've got Naomi Watts, Michelle Obama, we've got royals in the UK talking about it, Davina McCall. Things are really changing. The change is changing. No longer are women prepared to put up with being dismissed and ignored. When we use HRT, so hormone replacement therapy, which is the gold standard treatment for most women, we now know that HRT is safe for the vast majority of women. Estrogen, you will be pleased to know, is no longer extracted from horse's urine. We have body-identical progesterone, we've got testosterone restoring libido and restoring sex drives. And we've got promising data that HRT reduces all-cause mortality in women, possibly by up to 30%. We know that it has a positive impact on cholesterol metabolism, on glucose levels, reducing the risk of diabetes. We know that it helps with cardiovascular health, and we know that estrogen protects against osteoporosis. Doctors are listening and they are educating themselves, and they know that knowledge and adequate, appropriate prescribing is the way forward. New medics are prioritizing their training. I am contacted almost weekly by trainees, by students, all wanting to expand their education and their knowledge about the impact of menopause. There is new research and there is new funding. More and more medics are saying to patients, I see you. Companies are also listening. I'm invited to go and speak in workplaces. There's menopause mentors, menopause policies, menopause adaptations. There's fans in workplaces. There's flexible working, and women are supporting women. There's social media groups, there's books, and we need you to join them. Women, please talk to your friends, your family, your boss, your juniors. Normalize menopause. You have lived long enough to experience it. This is a good thing. You're lucky. You're not dead. You're alive. Advocate for yourselves. Seek second opinions, and don't be silenced. We have to keep midlife people, midlife women functioning. If midlife women are strong, then we're all strong. They hold families together. Let's turn the lights on, and this time, let's keep them on. This is not the end. The revolution is gaining momentum. Women, this is your second spring. Thank you.
Thank you.